This comment says, sounds exactly like my foster. Are there any tips or tricks for dogs who get hypervigilant in the darkness? When I take her out the last time to pee, she's super tensed up. And this is interesting. I have worked with a number of dogs who do seem to get more stressed in the dark. Their stress levels, all other things equal, increase significantly in the dark. And for some dogs, that is going outside when it's dark. For some dogs, that seems to be even inside of their home when it's dark. And across the board, I've sort of seen a smattering of different reasons for that aversion to the dark. I have had some clients who seem to be very, very worried about wildlife and predators in the dark, and sometimes wildlife that are not predators. I have had some dogs who seem like they may have vision issues related to the darkness, which is interesting. And then I've had still other dogs who seem to have likely made some negative associations with scary things happening at night or in the dark. And then I've had still other dogs where they have like underlying pain that's going to get worse throughout the day as they are active. And so they may have a harder time at night, although not all of those dogs, it doesn't seem in all of those dogs that it's necessarily connected to the darkness as much as the later time of day. And so that's a bit of a different thing, but something that I think can overlap with this aversion to the dark. And for some of those dogs where there seems to be like an emotional association with the dark itself that's negative, in some of those dogs we've been looking at trauma-related stress, trauma disorders, where we have known events that have happened in the dark and the behavior changed dramatically after that event. And so it's definitely one of those things that it's super, super interesting to me. And I'd be very curious to hear from other folks who maybe have dogs or who have worked with dogs who seem to be afraid of the dark, essentially, and who and what they've done to support those dogs. For my clients, it's sort of depended on what is going on. So for a lot of them, in terms of management, we try to make the world a bit brighter. I've had clients wear headlamps. Sometimes we're talking about the backyard, so we've added like outdoor lighting, floodlights. We've gone out with flashlights, and that seems to be helpful for the dogs where like the darkness itself is the trigger. So bringing out some additional light. Sometimes we will do work around those spaces as it's starting to get dark, and then as the dog is successful, we increase the challenge. So working as it's a bit darker and darker, and by working I mean we're doing things like on-off switch games, calming enrichment, pattern games, with no other triggers around. We're just trying to feel safe, engage in self-regulating behaviors, and create positive associations at dusky times, and then a little later, and then a little bit later, or we're moderating the level of the challenge with our like man-made lights. Very, very, very important, as with anything else, that the dog knows how to opt out of the session. They have a way to say, okay, I'm done with this, and flight out of there. We're of course keeping an eye on stress levels. We want these dogs to feel safe. In cases where we have a known aversion to wildlife, coyotes have been a big one. Sometimes we are doing some work around those smells specifically. And then of course we're also working more broadly on things like self-regulation and co-regulation, resilience to stress, reducing other stressors, which makes tolerating our stressors easier because there's less trigger stacking, a greater window of tolerance. Behavior medication is often helpful, and those are all things that are we're doing broadly, not necessarily directly in reference to the fear of the dark, but that are going to help with the fear of the dark and the ability to cope with that. But I'd be super interested to hear from other people who have had that experience. It's definitely something that I've seen many times, but I would say that it is less common than a lot of other behavior concerns or negative associations that I've seen.